All right, here we go. Easy enough, right? Harpod Sports, The Bar. Harpod Sports, The Bar, audio media podcast, radio network. Follow, share, like, subscribe. Easy enough at Harpon Sports on all of your platforms, including harponsports.com on Harpon Sports, the YouTube channel. Three things for you. The Men of Troy, as we look at the candidates or who should be at least the heir apparent to take over out at Southern Cal. Also, the NFL came out this week with a plan. It kind of snuck a little bit under the radar. And the plan essentially was what? It was to tell each of its member institutions, hey, find an international city to partner up with. Grab my attention. Believe you me, it grabbed my attention. So we're going to look at that as well. And also, the 30 for 30, the Mets series that's out. I love it. I think it's fascinating. It's great storytelling. I've got 5 that they should do next. At least the 5 that I would like to see next. Had the hiccups there for a minute. So there we go. All right. I'm going to start off first with Southern Cal. I think USC is one of the top 5 programs in all of college football in terms of exposure, cachet, stardom. Think about what Pete Carroll did there a decade ago. Will Ferrell, Snoop Dogg on the sidelines. It was amazing. It was crazy what that had become. To the point where they pushed it too much. Pete leaves, goes to the NFL, the Hall of Famer now. And, as I was sitting here thinking about this, I'm like, okay, Clay Helton's gone. Clay Helton really wasn't a good fit there. That's one of those. Clay Helton was going to be harsh, but Clay Helton was somebody that you date but you don't marry. And the next phase now is, okay, who can you get that'll be there for 10 to 15 years? Who's got that cachet? Who has that ability to draw somebody in, to draw people in? And I've got 5 guys. I saw the LA Times with the list, like the top 13 guys. Yeah, the list of 13 people. Man, you have a list of 13 people. You have a list of nobody. But there are 5 guys that I think would be a legitimate fit out at Southern Cal. And these aren't necessarily flavors of the week. These aren't, here's the new and upcoming guy. These are people that have done things, had success. You need somebody that's proven themselves, somebody that can recruit. You have LA, but how do you out-recruit UCLA? Bring excitement into a city that has the Lakers, the Clippers, the Dodgers. Think about it. It's LA. The Rams now and the Chargers. Chargers have a new upcoming quarterback, and the Rams are loaded. How do you bring cachet to that city? Remember, if you're the head coach at USC now, you're competing against 2 NFL teams and a good UCLA that didn't really exist 12, 13 years ago. So you got to think of those things. And the 5 guys that I can think of off the top of my head, number 5 guy on my list, I'm going to go with PJ Fleck. At Minnesota, the fact that this guy 2 years ago, COVID year, I kind of put that on the side. But PJ Fleck 2 years ago won 10 games at Minnesota, went to a New Year's Day bowl game and beat Auburn. Dude won 10 games at Minnesota. That's impressive. In his 3rd year at Minnesota, the dude won 10 games. Got my attention. Now I know that they, struggle, or they're competitive against Ohio State. 8-4, 9-3. I look at going like 8-4 or 9-3 or 10 wins at Minneapolis in football. Think about how, if you can sell Minneapolis, cold, outdoor college football, Minneapolis, you can sell LA. You can sell LA. So PJ Fleck would be 5th on my list. Number 4 on my list, I got Joe Brady, offensive coordinator, Carolina Panthers. If I see what Joe Brady did with LSU and Joe Burrow. Let's face it, Ed Orgeron was the head coach. Joe Brady was the mastermind of that. Joe Brady was the one that developed Joe Burrow, put all that together, and then he goes to Carolina, and Sam Darnold looked pretty good. Now, we've got a long way to go, but if Joe Brady can get Sam Darnold cooking, and the Carolina Panthers, I know Matt Rule's the head coach, but if Joe Brady can make Sam Darnold, USC guy, by the way, sizzle in Carolina, and that team Look, that division, you can win a wild card in that division. Can they beat the Bucks? No. Can they win 9 or 10 games? You bet they can. They go 10-7 in that division. They go 9-8. So I think Joe Brady would be fourth on my list to go to USC. So PJ Fleck 5, Joe Brady 4. Eric Bieniemy's number 3 on my list for Southern Cal. Eric Bieniemy, all he's got to do is walk into a recruit's room and said, you know who you remind me of, young man? Travis Kelce. Do you know who you remind me of, young man? Tyreek Hill. Do you know who you remind me of, young man? We got a receiver by the name of Sammy Watkins all those years. Do you know who you remind me of, young man? Offensive lineman that blocked for Patrick Mahomes. Do you know who you're... See where I'm going? Eric Bieniemy walks into your room and says, I can make you the next Patrick Mahomes. Where do I sign? Eric Bieniemy would be my third choice if I were Southern Cal. Number 2, and you know what? Got a Florida shirt on, but it's Dan Mullen. Dan Mullen took a Florida program over that won like 4 games. They're 4-7. It's a bad football team. And he won 10 games back-to-back years. Won and went to 3 major bowl games in a row. And he went to the SEC championship game and developed another Heisman Trophy candidate at quarterback. Yeah, the guy can coach. Now, the knock on Dan Mullen is recruiting. Is he going to be able to recruit? You know, he struggled against Kirby Smart. Understandable. But let's face it, Dan Mullen is a version of Pete Carroll 23, 24 years younger. Pete Carroll just turned 70 today. Isn't Dan Mullen a Pete Carroll of his late 40s? Which reminds me of. Now, Dan does some things that, not fond of, but there's a lot of coaches out there that do things I'm not fond of. Dan Mullen offered a scholarship to an 8th grader. I think you should be giving scholarships to offers to guys that are 100 days removed from the 7th grade. Other coaches do it. Do I like it? No, I think it's ridiculous. I think you should be in high school before you get a scholarship offer. You should have at least 1 day of your belt in high school. 1 day in that notch before you get offered a scholarship. But, it's not how it works. So, if the NCAA made a rule like that, everybody throw a fit. But Dan Mullen, he knows how to coach. He knows how to develop guys. He does. He's talking about his stubbornness and sticking with this quarterback over that quarterback. All fair. But Dan Mullen would be a gigantic success at Southern Cal. So he'd be number 2 on my list if I were them. Florida, Southern Cal, at the same type of cachet, Nike school, Jordan brand type of thing. He'd work out there. He would. And number 1 on my list would be Matt Campbell. Why? Because if you can win 9, 10 games at Iowa State, Ames, Iowa, you're a good football coach. Yeah, they lost at Iowa last week, but that dude's a good football coach. And he's young. He's captivative. He'd work. Matt Campbell at Iowa State reminds me a lot of Urban Meyer at Utah. He does. That's just getting the right fit. Matt Campbell would be my first call. My second call would be Dan Mullen. My third call would be Eric Bieniemy. My fourth call would be Joe Brady. My fifth call would be PJ Fleck if I was Southern Cal. It's one of the top 3 or 4 jobs in America. I noticed Urban Meyer said no, so I'm going to leave him off the list. And James Franklin, to me, look, guy's a good football coach, but I was more impressed with James Franklin at 8-4 at Vanderbilt than 10-2 at Penn State. He's been at Penn State, 7 years now? Done a nice job there. He has. Good coach. Maybe he wants out. But James Franklin, other jobs have opened up, and James Franklin has used those jobs to get raises at Penn State. Kind of like how Mike Gundy used those openings over the years at Tennessee to get raises at Oklahoma State. So I'm not falling for it. I'm just not. So there's that. Oh, boy. So there's that. Pivoting to the NFL. The NFL came out this week, and it's something that just slid under the radar. A little bit. They told their 32 teams that we want you to look for international cities. We want you to think about where you'd like to play and submit your proposals for an international city that can be your partner. The NFL added a 17th game this year. There are signs here that you don't have to look very hard to figure out. You don't. The NFL added a 17th game, 8 home, 8 road, 1 neutral site. Here we go. Within 5 years, this plan, the NFL, you're going to have 8 home games, 8 road games, and 1 neutral site game. 1 international game every year. That's the plan. It works. It fits. Now, the Jaguars already have theirs with London, right? Do I think teams will share England? Yes. These are the countries that the NFL has come out and said we want you to look at. Mexico City, the Cowboys want Mexico City. That's going to happen. That's what, 15 million people? They want Brazil. Very populous country. Rio's a big city. So they want Brazil. They want Mexico City. They mentioned Canada. Of course, Vancouver and Toronto, maybe Montreal. Of course, England. The UK. Oh, okay. Germany. Hello, Berlin. And China. Those are the countries where they want to start. Now, to me, I think Paris, France, probably be a good addition too. I think Rome, Italy, good addition as well. And then you can start ripping them off. Tokyo, Sydney, Australia, Barcelona, Spain. But for now, that's where we are. Those 6 countries. The city that you should want to partner with is Beijing. I mean, you got a billion, 1.2 billion, 1.3 people, 1.3 billion people in China. Yeah, I want that market. Considering China has more people in it than the United States if you multiplied it by 4. Yeah, I'll take my chances. I'll take China, you bet. It's Beijing, it's communism. Yep. Doesn't stop Coca-Cola and McDonald's from going over there. I want part of that pie too. Oh, yeah, you're right. It's greedy. Give me that money. I want my franchise value to go up. I mentioned Tokyo. So this is coming. And, I can only imagine being an international city and looking around going, oh my, please don't pick me. Insert city here. Oh my gosh. I'd love to see what Green Bay would, where does Green Bay tie in? Where does Green Bay want to tie? Green Bay going in there going, so, Oslo? We're going to go Norway? Helsinki, Finland? Where are we going to go? So, it's smart. And this is the NFL. We heard for the longest time, going to put a team in London, going to put a team in London, going to put a team in London. No, they're going to put 32 teams overseas. They are. There's going to be an international. All 32 teams will play an international home game, which means more than likely each team's going to play 2 games out of the country a year. Now, if you're the NFL, I could have 8 games in London, or I could have 9 games in London. Let's say if I put a team permanently in London. That's 9 home games, 8 road games. I could have 9 games. Or if I have all 32 teams in the NFL play a home game or play an international game. Look, I got 8 home, 8 road, neutral site, international. That gets me to 17 games. You know what? I could have 32 games around the world, or I could have 9 games in London. What's going to make me more money? And remember, the NFL is a product. You say, it's American football belongs here. If you had that process and mentality, Coca-Cola, McDonald's, Disney, none of these things would be international products. They'd be regional products. It's not how growth works. It's not how business works. Could you imagine if Toyota had that approach with their cars? Only going to sell in Japan. Wouldn't do it. Wouldn't do it. So I love this NFL plan. I love it. I love it. It actually makes more sense financially. Oh, the Jaguars are London. Who's going to end up being Beijing? I don't know. That's the one you want. If I had to guess, there's certain ones that just see me. It makes sense that Seattle would be Tokyo, Japan, right? To me, if I were the Chargers or the Rams, that's who I'd want Beijing. I would. I don't know where, like geographically on the map. I'm trying to think how things work because the Dolphins would want South America probably. At least I would. Boy, the Colts, horse, Denver, horse, Spain, Spanish horses, Barcelona, Madrid, something like that, Italy. I just think of Rome and just all these cities and where teams line up. If I sat down, I think it'd be fascinating to try to line up 32 NFL franchises with 32, international cities. It'd be a lot of fun. It's coming. The NFL says within 5 years, Start putting your bids for international cities. It's coming. The thing I wanted to end with, 30 for 30, the series on the Mets, the Queens angle, it's fascinating. I hated the Mets when I was a kid. Keith Hernandez is just something grimy and dirty about him. They were throwbacks. Darryl Strawberry and Doc Gooden, Sid Fernandez. It's just something about, they were blue collar dudes, man. And it was just one of these things as a kid. The Mets just rubbed you wrong. They did. They just rubbed me wrong as a kid. Them beating the Red Sox, them always owning the Cubs, those things always bothered me. As an adult, I look back and go, those things are petty and ridiculous. But when you're 9 years old, you don't know any better. And so that's why you hated Andre the Giant and any heel in wrestling, Ravishing Rick Rude. I hated those guys. So, I look back on it now, and it's fascinating storytelling. It is. And I was thinking to myself, okay, what 30 for 30s would I like to see? What 30 for 30s haven't we gotten yet that I would like to, that would grab my attention? That could be made that would make me go, you know what, I'd like to see it a lot. I really would. I've got one that I think would be probably more personal. But remember, when it comes to storytelling, you're trying to tap into my generation or older. Tapping into a 28-year-old's nostalgia really doesn't work. Get a little older than that. So, for the purpose of this, I think there's one of them that's probably just a little too close. That's why I've got it at the back of the list, and that's Johnny Appleseed. And that's Johnny Manziel. He changed the SEC. He really did. Johnny Manziel was one of the big catalysts to help the SEC network kick in. The expansion of the conference with Missouri and A&M, it made it a little more palatable. Johnny Manziel comes in, he wins the Heisman. Right as A&M joins the conference, he beats Alabama. Whoa. Okay. What was funny about that is they never got to the SEC title game while Missouri won it back-to-back years within their first 4 years. Or won the SEC East, I should say. So, I think it's 30 for 30 on Johnny Manziel. Are we too close to it? Probably. Another title for one, American Gangster, would be Aaron Hernandez. I'd love to see the inside of that and what happened at the University of Florida, what happened with the Patriots, who knew, what were the rumors, all of those things. Is it still too new? Maybe. That dude probably wins the Super Bowl MVP if if Eli Manning doesn't hit Plaxico Burress in the back of the end zone, or David Tyree doesn't make that catch, Aaron Hernandez probably wins the MVP of that Super Bowl. Think about how interesting that is in life. But I'd love to see a 30 for 30 on Aaron Hernandez. One that's personal. I don't know how much it would reflect overall nationwide, but I called it Mic'd Up, or The Voice is what I would call it. And it would look at all the old broadcasters. Vince Scully's the only one left. When I was growing up, Jack Buck, Cardinals, Ernie Harwell, Tigers, Joe Nuxall, Reds. You had Harry Callis. You go back a generation, the Mel Allens. I remember Harry Carey as the Cubs. My pops remembers Harry Carey as Cardinals. And you find the generation in between us, and they remember Harry Carey as a White Sox. So you have just all these different generations of these guys in all these cities and these broadcasters. And Vin Scully's the last one. So I would center around Vin Scully and look, start to expand out. Red Barber. I just think, with Brooklyn, I just think that'd be fascinating to hear all those guys. I really, really would. I'd love to hear it. Bob Uecker. Bob Uecker with the Brewers. Call it the Voices. Voices from the past. I love 30 for 30 on that. With this Mets Queens one going on. The second one I have on the list, I call it Summer Lovin', Brett Favre. We were obsessed with Brett Favre for 3 straight summers. You couldn't get enough of him. Brett Favre is what taught me in media and radio to not listen to what anybody says, watch what they do. I'm never going to watch that again. I'm tired of hearing about this. No, you may be, but everybody's not. Why are they always talking about that? Because that's what you're always consuming. There's 9 Fast and Furious movies for a reason. People keep consuming them. Why do they keep making Star Wars? Because you keep going. They're going to keep making them too. They are. Watch. So, I'd love to see something on Favre because that captivated this summer. He'd retired. Then they'd go offer him money. He'd say no. They'd offer him more money. He'd say no. Then they went on planes and got him and drug him back, offered him more money. So he'd say yes. You'd all do the same thing. So would I. And the last one I have on here is The Heat is On. How the big three came together in Miami. Those are 30 for 30s that I would like to see. I know Netflix just did one on the Malice in the Palace, so we've got that one now. And there's probably some other ones out there, but those are the ones I would like to see. So there you go. Harp on Sports, The Bar, podcast, audio, media, radio network, at Harp on Sports on all the social media platforms, Harp on Sports Facebook page, Harp on Sports YouTube channel. Also, harponsports.com. Website's almost done. Or I should say it's done. We're just remodeling it. It's been up for a while, and it's been up for a couple years now. The other thing that we have for you, Harp on Sports Podcasts, Buzzsprout, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. There you go. We'll be back Friday for a little Friday night light action. Light camera action. Remember, stay clean, stay focused, stay strong. Frankenstein, fun with your friends.